Hello, everyone! In Japanese folklore and legends, Oni appear almost without fail. With horns, sharp fangs, and tiger skin loincloths, they are terrifying figures. But would you believe me if I told you that these Oni once actually existed? The image of the frightening monster we know today may just be a construct created by those in power. This is a record of those who were defeated and erased from history, never to appear in textbooks. Today, we will dive deep into the true identity of those who were called Oni and pushed into the darkness of history. What do you imagine when you hear the word Oni? Most of you probably think of a red ogre or a blue ogre living in the mountains. However, looking at ancient documents, the original meaning of the word Oni was slightly different. In ancient times, the word is said to have come from Onu, meaning to hide. It referred to invisible beings or those who hid from the world. Why did they eventually have to be depicted as monsters? I want to ask you a question. Who do you think writes history? The answer is always the victors, the side that wins the battle, and gains power records history to justify their legitimacy. If so, what happens to those who were defeated? They were labeled as Oni and driven into the darkness of history as beings that were not human. First, let's look at the entities called Suchigumo. In ancient history, books like the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki, monsters called Suchigumo appear, resisting the emperor's army. They are described as long-limbed, dwelling in pits, and terrifyingly cunning. In reality, they are thought to have been indigenous peoples or local clans who refused to submit to the Yamato court. During the process of national unification, they fought to protect their land, but to the court, they were eerie existences that would not obey. By recording them as spider-like monsters, the court justified their elimination. How do you feel about the fact that people who were just trying to protect their homes are passed down as monsters? The legend of Shuten-doji, the King of Oni, also has a fascinating background. Though he is said to have committed atrocities in the capital of Kyoto, one theory suggests he was the leader of a group that built its own society, deep in the mountains of Tanba. They accepted people fleeing from heavy taxes, those who fell through the cracks of the system, and perhaps even people from overseas. For the rulers of the time, the existence of a powerful, uncontrollable group nearby was a major threat. Thus, under the pretext of demon slaying by Minamoto, Raiko and his men, their base was attacked. It is said they used poison sake to incapacitate the Oni before attacking. Does this not seem cowardly for a hero of justice? The words Shuten-doji left, that there is no foul play among Oni, seem to be a strong irony toward the winners who used such dirty tactics. Next, let's look at the story of Momotaro from a different perspective. This story, where Momotaro goes to Onigashima to defeat the Oni and bring back treasure, is seen by some as a glorification of overseas expeditions, or the conquest of indigenous groups within Japan. For example, there is a legend of Oni named Ura in Okayama. Ura was said to be a prince from Bekye, who brought ironworking technology to Japan and made the region prosperous. However, the court feared his power and sent Kibitsuiko no Mikoto to eliminate him. Ura is a strong candidate for the model of the Oni in Momotaro. What he protected was the cutting edge, iron technology, and the rich resources it brought. Could the treasures Momotaro brought back have been the looted technology and resources? Behind the hero story lies a history of invasion and appropriation. Consider the horns, fangs, and red skin that symbolize Oni. There is a theory that these symbolize people of a specific profession, blacksmiths, who performed tatara ironworking. They lived in the mountains, manipulated fire, and produced iron. Their skin was scorched red from the intense flames, and their figures were sturdy from swinging heavy hammers. Their monopoly on iron gave them great power, and they were not to be underestimated by the rulers. The fear and respect for their technology may have transformed into a belief in Oni. To the villagers, their tools, the smoke from the forge, and their unique rituals might have looked like terrifying supernatural phenomena. Do you know the Namahage, the traditional event in Akita? With their cries of, "Are there any bad children?" They are the image of Oni. However, besides being messengers of the gods from the mountains, there is a theory that they were actually foreigners who washed ashore from the continent. People who spoke an unknown language, wore unfamiliar clothes, and had different facial features were recognized as Oni from the mountains. Though initially feared, they eventually brought new culture and wisdom to the community and became guardian-like figures. Thus, Oni was also a word symbolizing the other, the stranger, who exceeded one's understanding. Tracing the darkness of history further, we encounter the Emishi of the north. Led by the hero Aterui, they fiercely resisted the court's invasion and were feared as Oni or demons. Their superior horsemanship and unique tactics tormented the court's army. Because of their strength, the nobles of the time thought they were demons in human form. Aterui eventually surrendered in hopes of peace, trusting Sakanoe no Tamuramaro, but he was sent to the capital, where the promise was broken and he lost his life. The fact that such proud warriors were turned into wretched demons to be defeated in stories is one of the greatest distortions in history. I have a second question for you. If a group of people you've never seen wearing clothes, you've never seen and speaking a language you don't understand, suddenly appeared in your town, how would you react? We strive to accept diversity today, but to ancient people, the unknown might have been nothing but an object of pure fear. That fear created the form of the Oni, and the politics of the time used it as a justification to eliminate enemies. This is one aspect of the true identity of the Oni. The spread of Buddhism also played a large part in solidifying the image of the Oni as the jailers of hell who torture sinners. With this, the Oni became a complete symbol of evil. Beings that were originally land deities or resistant humans were rewritten into something wicked in a religious context. This served as a tool of fear, suggesting that those who rebelled against the court would become Oni in hell. By planting fear in people's hearts, rule was strengthened. The Oni was an excellent political tool for mind control. However, shrines across Japan worship Oni as deities. They were not merely villains, but were believed to be powerful guardians. In some regions, like Mie or Nara, there are customs of welcoming the Oni instead of driving them away. This is evidence that those called Oni actually possessed high skills and knowledge, and contributed to their regions. Though despised as Oni by the authorities, they may have been reliable leaders to the common people they lived with. The warm interactions and the pride of those called Oni truly breathe there. Expanding our perspective, the word Oni was also used for women marginalized by society, as seen in the Hanya mask. There are many stories of women turning into Oni out of deep jealousy or resentment. However, behind this is the sadness of women who were oppressed in a male-centered society without a voice. The reason they had to become Oni might have been a final resistance to protect themselves, or their loved ones from an unreasonable reality. Oni may have been the form of a counterattack by the powerless against society. As we approach the climax, let me share an episode. A legend tells of an Oni and a human falling in love. However, the villagers feared the Oni and eventually cornered him and took his life. The human wife he left behind used the mysterious tools he possessed to bring prosperity to the village. The villagers enjoyed the wealth, while hiding the fact that they had killed the Oni. This story conveys the cruelty of humans, who exclude what is different and the preciousness of a heart that still cares. Weren't the Oni just people like us with blood in their veins, who simply looked different or had a different status? The tears they shed may still be moistening the earth as rain. We were taught to defeat the Oni in stories and live happily ever after. But it is highly likely that those who departed this world at the end of the sword were just nameless. People trying to protect their families and their culture. How much regret must they have felt when they were erased from the stage of history? If that feeling became a grudge or a sad ghost story, we may need to listen to their voices correctly. One last question for you. If someone is called an Oni and is about to be excluded from society today, how would you see that person? Would you join the majority and throw stones without trying to see their truth? It is always the logic of fear and exclusion in our own hearts that creates the Oni. As we enter the ending, the way you see Oni from tomorrow might change a little. When you shout Oni wa Soto during the bean-throwing festival, try to remember the people who were toyed with by history. History is always multifaceted. What is visible is not necessarily the only truth. Behind the justice you believe in, the tragedy of someone who was turned into an Oni might be hidden. If you found this story interesting or thought-provoking, please subscribe to the channel and give us a high rating. Also, if there are Oni legends or mysterious experiences in your hometown, please let us know in the comments. Your comments may become the light that illuminates the truth. See you in the next story.